This is the Ben Mulroney Show, but I'm nothing if not generous. I love sharing this platform with our listeners and, of course, with the great guests that we have. And on Fridays, we pull together a terrific panel for This Week in Politics. Please welcome to the show Brad Smith, Chorus radio contributor, longtime TV host, all-around bon vivant.
Ben, thank you.
Chris Chapin, political commentator, managing principal of Upstream Strategy, and Warren Kinsella, former special advisor to Jean Chrétien and CEO of the Daisy Group. To all three of you, I say happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Glad to be here.
Warren, I want to start with you first because the news of the surgical strike by Israel to force the hand of Iran to take a step back and really ask themselves, do we really want to pursue a nuclear weapon? It's quite masterful in what they did. They're playing 4D chess. And it looks like they really struck at the heart of the beast and accomplished, at least initially, what they wanted to do, which was set them back in their ambitions of being able to build a nuke. But I wanted to focus on the tweet by our foreign minister, Anita Anand, who said the first thing in her tweet was that they're watching the escalation closely. But the priority here is further action risks triggering a broader regional conflict with devastating consequences. De-escalation must be the priority. We urge all parties to refrain from actions that further destabilize the region. The protection of civilians must be paramount. And then the next line, Canada remains deeply concerned by the threat posed by Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program. It seems to me that yet again we've got a government they want to both sides every single thing. In certain circumstances, Warren, there is a white hat and there is a black hat. There is a good guy and there is a bad guy. And I don't understand this moral equivalency that dominates the Liberal Party of Canada these days.
Well, it's the Pearson building, where foreign affairs or global affairs is headquartered, and this reflects their approach to the world. Her tweet was idiotic. It was stupid in the extreme. On Thursday, the International Atomic Energy Agency, for the first time in 20 years, censured Iran, saying that they were moving towards the production of a nuclear bomb. Iran responded to that by saying, you know what, we're going to build a third uranium enrichment site, and we're going to get better centrifuges so that we can purify our uranium faster and get a bomb.
Yeah.
At around the same time, Donald Trump's negotiations with the Iranians for a deal, and basically the deal he was ready to settle for was the one that Barack Obama had that he tore up. His negotiations failed. So at that point, especially when the IAEA said what they said, Iran was getting ready, and by some reports, was days away from producing a nuclear bomb, which they have the ability to drop on Israel or any nation in that part of the world.
Yeah.
So I don't think Israel had any choice whatsoever, and they had to move. Yeah. And, I think anybody who's sensible has to support them.
So Chris, with the context that Warren just provided, and thank you for that primer, Warren, with that context, what does it say about the seriousness of the people in charge that they can't see that this action taken by Israel constitutes de-escalation?
I mean, Ben, I think of the Hamilton quote, you stand for nothing, you fall for anything. I think that pretty much just epitomizes the Liberal government over the last 10 years approach to foreign affairs. I mean, I don't think Anita Anand's new to it. I think Warren's onto something on, the Pearson building and what runs through the water when it comes to global affairs in this country these days. But, we saw the same whataboutism with Melanie Joly when she was the Minister of Foreign Affairs previously. I don't know what the Liberal Party of Canada stands for when it comes to foreign affairs anymore. It's like it pains them to say the words that Israel has its right to defend itself, but not just reactively but proactively to make sure that they feel safe in the Middle East. And to Warren's point about the nuclear bomb, like if they're days away, then they did the right thing. And I don't understand why it's become so complicated for us to understand that Israel, our ally in the region, would do something to protect themselves. I mean, maybe it speaks volumes to why it was so difficult for us to invest 2% of our GDP in having a national defense system that could protect ourselves here in Canada.
And Brad, I was not necessarily a fan of a lot of Warren's former boss, Jean Chrétien, but God, do I miss his moral clarity. I would take that any day of the week over this hedging and wanting to have their cake and eating it too.
Well, you talk about liberal foreign policy. It's appease everyone, side with no one. And you're talking about this might destabilize the region. Let's just put this into context. Iran itself destabilizes the region. They're funding terror through 7 different terror organizations. And when they get access to $16 billion when it was released by Biden, what do you think they're going to do with the money? This is not a preemptive or deflective. This was the right thing to do. When you look at Netanyahu saying that they are a year away, maybe less than a year away from nuclear action, we don't have the moral compass to understand that region specifically, if they're willing to fund terror organization on a daily basis, what do you think they're going to do with a nuclear weapon? Yeah. Oh no, we'll just sit on it. It'll be our ace in the hole. No, this was what needed to be done, and this should be coming out. And you should side with Israel because there is no other way to look at this.
I know it doesn't make any sense to me. All right, let's move on to the G7. I think a lot of us are. It's hotly anticipated. There's a lot of guest stars that are popping up. MBS is going to be there. Modi from India has been invited, and already the invitation of Narendra Modi to the G7, it was causing a lot of friction and a lot of upset people, specifically in the Sikh community here in Canada. But yesterday, Mercedes Stephenson of Global News had a scoop about how the Indian government was keeping tabs on Jagmeet Singh during the election campaign to the point they had a tracker on his car, and that he was under not just a little bit of security, but under like tactical security, military level security. That was how great the threat was to his life by agents acting at the behest of the Indian government. And Chris, I got to ask you, with this sort of, like, I know we've got to negotiate with bad actors, but inviting Modi at this point with this information to the most exclusive club in the world, it feels like we're rewarding bad behavior.
I couldn't agree more, Ben. It's crazy how quickly things can change. I think I spoke earlier this week saying, it's probably the right thing to do to invite both Modi and the Crown Prince to the G7 as we look to diversifying our economy and what that actually means, right? Becoming less reliant on the United States. But then you see the global story that came out yesterday. And if there is truth to it, and I know it's unverified, but if there is truth to the reporting that Global had, I don't know how we allow Modi to step foot on a plane, yet alone land in the country and then be invited to the G7 that we're hosting in Alberta. The reports of the assassination in British Columbia and their unwillingness to work with Canadian authorities in and of itself was a problem. But the idea that they may have been, doing this and tracking Jagmeet Singh to the point that he needed the security protection that it's reported he had, I think it's absolutely absurd, and I think it's completely verified and right to cut ties with them and say, listen, you're not coming until we get to the bottom of this and we work something out.
Warren, if you were working with the Liberal government right now, would you be able to spin this to the media, explaining why bringing Modi in at this point under these circumstances is a good thing? And I'm going to ask you to do it in about 45 seconds.
I wouldn't be able to look the widow of Hardeep Nijjar in the face. Killed less than 2 years ago in Surrey, in Canadian soil. I don't know how you do that. Like, for sure, I've talked to the Prime Minister Chrétien about this. You have to, occasionally have interactions with unsavory characters, like in China. But in this case, they sent a team to kill a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. We should not be rolling out the red carpet for that regime.
The last word to you, Brad Smith.
Yeah, exactly right, Warren. But this, Ben, you said it right. The PR behind this. And this is a Carney thing. Just the same way you bring the king in to level yourself up as a world leader. What he's doing is not thinking about if this is going to stay in the 24-hour news cycle, because it won't. It'll be gone within a week after the G7. But the fact of the matter is by being around these people, he constantly claims the 5th biggest economy in the world, they should be invited just for economic and political prowess. But this is a thing where Mark wants to align himself as one of those top leaders, so he's got to bring in people that level him up as well, and so that other people see him on that level.
Just not a good look.
It's not a good look.
Yeah, not a good look. All right, guys, thank you so much. Just stick around. We've got more with our political panel after the break, and we're going to be talking, is there a role for military parades in Western democracy? We're going to drill down on that next when we come back on The Ben Mulroney Show. The Ben Mulroney Show marches on June 13th, 2025, and I'm not doing it alone. Along on the ride is Brad Smith, Chris Chapin, and Warren Kinsella for This Week in Politics. All right, we're going to talk about something now that I really don't have a strong opinion on, which is rare if you're a regular listener of the show. We're talking about military parades. There is a parade scheduled for tomorrow in the United States, organized by Donald Trump. And look, I can see the positives there. I can see it's the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, and it is not the exclusive domain of despots. I was at the Bastille Day military parade in 1989, celebrating the bicentennial of the French Revolution. But on the other side, you've got someone like Gavin Newsom. Let's listen to what he had to say.
It's the kind of thing you see Kim Jong-un, you see it Putin, you see it with dictators around the world that are weak and just want to demonstrate strength. Weakness masquerading as strength. To fet the dear leader on his birthday, what an embarrassment.
All right, so look, I can see both sides. Warren, I suspect you probably have a more pointed opinion than I.
My opinion is that of President Dwight D. Eisenhower years ago. It was suggested to him that he have such a parade to show off the strength of the United States of America. And this is what he said. This is a quote. "Absolutely not. We are the preeminent power on earth. For us to try and imitate what the Soviets are doing in Red Square would make us look weak." They look weak. They look pathetic. They look like they're being hauled out. The military, who have other jobs, have other more important things to do, being hauled out for the birthday of this felon. And but anyway, it's representative of the madness that's gripped the United States over the past few months. Nothing surprises me anymore.
But Chris, I'm maybe I'm missing something in sort of Warren's laser focus on this, and I take him. I take his point. But look, if after years of mistreating our military, if all of a sudden we did get it to the point where it is the fullest expression of what Mark Carney says he wants it to be, I don't know. I kind of want to see what we paid for. I kind of want our military to walk down the streets in Ottawa with pride and beaming, and we could all get there and tell them how much we appreciate them. Am I missing something here?
Well, you and I both know, Ben, that the residents of Ottawa would have a meltdown if the military paraded down Rideau Street. They'd clench their fist and be terrified of what was happening. No, I think Warren's spot on. It's not about the parade itself. It's just it's the president. Yeah. It's because of who he is. If this actually was any sort of a tradition that the United States would typically do, roll out the military to honor very important anniversaries or historic moments in the United States history, it would be something different, but it's not. It's his birthday, and we all know when it comes to the president, we know his fixation on China, we know his fixation on Russia, and his respect and his belief of Vladimir Putin. And so for him to do this with everything that's going on, and it just so happens to be his birthday, I wonder how hard they had to look to figure out and find an anniversary that just happened to coincide with his birthday. Because some intern in the White House eventually found out, hey guys, it's the 200th anniversary of the military.
Yeah.
Like it's just not, it had nothing to do with anything other than the president himself. And that's what makes it look weak.
And look, I'm not naive. Of course I know that they sort of shoehorn this in on his birthday. Of course I get that.
Ben, it's my birthday. I need someone to celebrate me.
But if this were a different president doing it, I wonder if we would be feeling the same thing. And look, I get it. Yeah. I know that we're doing it because Donald Trump wants to do it for himself. But the act itself, take him out of it, take the fact it's happening tomorrow, that it has never happened before. Is there something intrinsically wrong with a Western democracy doing something like this?
I want to kind of key on to what you said earlier with the way that they've been treated for the last specifically 4 years, or the numbers of recruitment going down year after year after year. I see this as more of a twofold. We have to say there's no coincidence that it's happening on his birthday, but at the same time, having lived in Los Angeles, right around the War Museum, seeing the veterans, how mistreated they are, this is something that can re-inspire. Let's take a good point. I'm going to counterpoint this one. This can re-inspire. It can help your enlistment. We're going through a time where escalation in the world is actually happening. And for us, specifically as the partner to the Americans who protect us and our sovereignty, as much as we hate saying that, it's important for them to have a strong presence, have a strong military. And yes, this is a pomp and circumstance thing.
Yeah.
But I don't see there being a detriment, and I would love to hear from a U.S. soldier and how they feel, but I would be surprised if they weren't on board with this because they are not seen in as good of a light as they used to be in the past, and they are very, very important.
All right, Chris Chapin, let's turn our eyes to domestic policy as it relates to the electric vehicle market. The studies are showing that the appetite by Canadians just isn't there. Sales have sunk like a stone. It's a very similar drop in the United States. Donald Trump made his pronouncement that he's getting rid of all mandates up here on our side of the border, despite the CEOs of GM Canada and Ford Canada saying, you got to get rid of the mandate. Our minister, Mélanie Joly, Minister of Innovation, said not only are they keeping the mandate, but they're probably going to reinstitute some sort of incentive. So what am I missing here? The market has spoken,
demand,
the consumers are speaking, and the government is saying we're going to go in the opposite direction.
You're not missing anything, Ben. It is this liberal government just doing what they do best. They, when the public tells them they're wrong, they double down and say, no, we're right. And it is a real challenge. I mean, it's something that I think is going to be a massive challenge for Canadian economies, especially here in Ontario, with the investments both the province and the federal government have made when it comes to electric vehicles. Is what happens if we get this wrong? What happens if that demand isn't there? And unfortunately, we're seeing that demand not meet the expectations we all thought there might be. And maybe not. We should use "we" generously in this sense, but there's always been a hesitancy. You don't look out on the streets. People haven't adopted electric vehicles like I think people thought they were. I think there's concerns about the technology. I think there's concerns about the fact we live in Canada and we have winters and the battery strengths do weaken when the temperatures drop. And we have to drive far distances where the charging stations just aren't there in the capacity that they need to be. So I don't think it's a surprise that the demand isn't there yet. It's just, how do we balance that with the incredible, massive investments that the province and the federal government have made into electric vehicle, manufacturing here in the country. Yeah,
and Warren, I concede that a lot of governments are in a tight spot. They bet really heavy on this new economy, but don't forget we also tariffed Chinese EVs to keep them out of the market as a way to protect this burgeoning EV market that we just don't have. That suffered a massive setback to our canola industry because that got tariffed at 100% by the Chinese in retaliation. Are we just throwing good money after bad?
The sales of EVs are dropping across the board. Tesla most dramatically because, Tesla was designed for liberals, and then Elon Musk proceeded to piss off liberals everywhere. But, they're ending the consumer rebate programs. A lot of governments, you've got concerns about the cost. They cost more than internal combustion engines. And then for guys like me, I live in Prince Edward County. There's no charging stations near me.
Yeah, that infrastructure hasn't been built out the way it has in the States.
And a lot of people have range anxiety. It's like, what if I run out of power when I'm in the middle of nowhere? So there's lots of good reasons why consumers have moved away from it. And the industry needs to figure that out. If they're serious, if governments are serious about it, they need to make some changes to get people back into the marketplace. But right now, they're leaving in droves. Yeah,
Brad, the argument is everybody who can afford one already has one.
Well, and to follow Warren's point, just the charging alone, if you look at this mandate, the word, and to take a sentence you use all the time, cart before the horse, right? We throw money at things without understanding how to actually fundamentally put them in place. This is, if you look at it, infeasible on any level. The grid structure, the charging stations, the demand, it just doesn't make sense. And what you're trying to do is saying this is going to be the mandate and we'll figure it out on the way down the road. And we haven't spent the money yet. We haven't done it yet. And guess what? Not only can we not drive our cars in the winter, to what Chris says, but look, when I lived in Los Angeles, you had on the radio times where you couldn't charge your car. Please don't, because the power grid will come out.
Yeah, yeah. And let's not forget, it's also more expensive to insure those cars. Hey, Brad Smith, Chris Chapin, Warren Kinsella, always love having the three of you on the show. I hope you have a great weekend to the three of you. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of The Ben Mulroney Show.